Hello everyone, welcome to today's class, and our title today is Sand Scare. Let's move on to language focus. 1번. If you're in the hole and it's more than 60 centimeters deep, you're at risk of getting trapped. Okay, as you can see, I've highlighted are at the risk of. So we use be at the risk of to express that there is a danger of something bad happening to something or someone. So basically what we mean is be at risk of is 위험에 처하다 or 노출되다. So you're at risk of heart disease if your blood pressure is too high. 혈압이 너무 높으면 심장병에 걸린 위험이 있습니다. I've got to check my blood pressure soon as well. Check my health. It's not great these days. People worry that those two countries might be at risk of going to war. There's a lot of talk about that these days. So 사람들은 두 나라가 전쟁의 위험에 처할 수 있다고 걱정하고 있습니다. So yeah, there's tons of situations these days. China, Taiwan, North Korea, South Korea, obviously Ukraine and Russia and the rest of the world. And yeah, it's not a great time to be, every day is a great time to be alive, but it's a very difficult time to be alive at the moment. All right, 2번. Lie on top of the sand and relax all you want, but if you're thinking of digging down into it, think again. Okay, so I've highlighted think again. So use think again to express that an idea is wrong. It is often preceded by if you think or if you thought. So, think again. 다시 생각해 보세요. So, 생각한 게 틀렸다고 말할 때 쓰는 표현이다. 주로 if you think 또는 if you thought 다음 수인다. So, if you think it's a good idea to try drugs, think again. So, 마약을 시도해보는 게 좋은 생각이라고 생각한다면 다시 생각해 보세요. Or, if you thought that the guy was going to change, think again. 저 사람이 바꿀 것 같다고 생각했다면 다시 생각해 보세요. Do you believe people can change? I think people can change. Just depends on the person. Alright, now let's look at the language focus quiz. 1번. If you're at risk of getting arrested. So if we roll back up here, be at the risk of. So what do we say? 위험에 처하다 or 노출되다. If you're at the risk of getting arrested. Let's keep it simple. If you drink and drive, you are at the risk of getting arrested. 음주운전을 하면 체포될 위험이 있습니다. 2번. I worry that could be at the risk of Let's say I worry that she could be at the risk of getting diabetes. Alright. So 그녀가 당뇨병에 걸릴 수 있을 위험에 걱정됩니다. Alright. 3번. If you think it is acceptable to think again. So think again. Remember, 다시 생각해 보세요. So, if you think it's acceptable to, let's say, swear at your boss, think again. 상사에게 욕하는 게 허용된다고 생각한다면 다시 생각해 보세요. Or if you think nobody, think again. Cares about you, think again. 아무도 당신을 신경 쓰지 않는다고 생각한다면 다시 생각해 보세요. There's always somebody who cares about you. You're always wanted on this earth. Alright, now let's look at the further discussion. 1번. When you were a kid, did you enjoy playing in the sand? Did you ever make a sandcastle? So, 어렸을 때 몰래놀이를 즐겼나요? 몰래송을 만들어 본 적이 있으신가요? Of course. When I was in Australia, especially when I was a kid, I would go to the beach quite often, especially during the summer holiday period or during Christmas time. Because remember, in Australia, it's summer, it's Christmas in summer. So we would often go to beaches or lakes or whatever. And I used to love playing in the sand and making sandcastles and even, burying ourselves in the sand. I used to do that a lot with my cousins. I miss the sand and I miss the feeling of it between your toes. And like I said before, I can't wait to go back to Australia where I can enjoy some of the Australian beaches and the fresh air and the smell of the ocean because that's something I really miss. That's something that makes me feel a little bit homesick is that I can't go and smell or feel the Australian beaches because it was one of my favorite pastimes to do. And I love swimming and I don't do it very often. I live in Gyeonggi-do area. There's not really a swimming pool around me. I don't really like swimming pools anyway, to be honest with you. But yeah, answer your question very simply, yes and yes. 2번. Were you aware that though it was so easy to get trapped in sand, have you ever heard of this happening in your country? 모래에 갓 뛰기 쉽다는 사실을 알고 계셨나요? 당신의 나라에서 이런 일이 일어나는 적이 있었나요? Yeah, well, yeah. Of course it's easy to get trapped in sand, especially as it said before, when the sand is very dry, it tends to crumble or collapse. So, have you ever heard of quicksand before? That's not something you will see at the beach, and it's not actually really sand, is it? I think it's like mud. But quicksand is where the sand or the mud that you sink into, like very slowly. However, yeah, of course, we were told when we were very young, if we go and bury ourselves in the sand, make sure you're with somebody and they can help you get out. But to be honest with you, to build a very deep hole in the sand is actually more difficult than it sounds, especially with, let's say, the toys and utensils or the tools that children use. The biggest hole I created wasn't that big, and I don't think anyone would have fallen in and hurt themselves, or I don't think anyone would have been buried alive because it's actually really difficult to dig into sand unless the whole of the sand is, even if the sand is wet, it's very difficult with a shovel and a pail, as we mentioned earlier. So, yeah, it's easy to get trapped in sand, but it's also very difficult to dig a deep hole in sand as well. All right, so that wraps it up for today's class, and I'll see you on the next class.
Abundant.
Abundant.
Hazard.
Hazard.
Localism.
Localism.
Pale.
Pale.
Recipe for disaster.
Recipe for disaster.
Collapse.
Collapse.